Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to our channel. Today's video was a highly requested one, to say the least. Y'all have been asking for this, I think pretty much since I started this Let's Talk About series, and I've been waiting on it. I'm not gonna lie, because I got word that this specific show, and I know I'm being vague like it's not in the title, but this specific show, Elite Season 4, was getting a Season 4. And when I found that out, I was like, there's no way I'm about to talk about this show, only for there to be a new season that comes out and basically everything that I thought I knew not be true anymore. So I waited. I put up with y'all asking every video, where's the Elite video? Where's the Elite video? Please talk about Elite. I need Elite now. Here we are. So we're finally here. This show is a masterpiece. Well, maybe not a masterpiece, but it's very, very, very good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But of course, you know me, it could be a masterpiece, but nothing is perfect. So we're gonna talk about the absolute ride that Season 4 of Elite was. The good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing, because there was a lot of confusing. I have a lot of notes asking a lot of questions, so hopefully we can figure this out together. But before we do all that, make sure if you are new to the channel to hit that subscribe button, because only, I don't even know the percentage right now, Remy, put some overlay over, only 14.2% of y'all are actually subscribed, and that's ridiculous. So y'all should subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's talk about Elite Season 4. For those of you that are not familiar with the Elite series, you are sincerely missing out, and I recommend that you watch all 4 seasons before you come here, because if you don't, you are pretty much going to be spoiled for the entire show, which is your loss. But Elite is this Spanish show set in Spain, in Spanish. I listen to the English dub because though I am a Spanish minor, I just do not want to use the brain power. But the show is about these extremely rich private school, high school kids. The whole gist of it is that it's like a murder mystery, and every season someone else dies. And they tell the story in this reverse chronological order, which by now we're familiar with because we've seen other shows with it, but this show actually does it pretty well. I do have some thoughts on the continued use of it that we'll get into, but it's usually told by revealing in the first episode who croaked, and then each episode really giving us more and more context of what happened leading up to the croaking. And I know I said I'd leave this for later, but my one pet peeve about this is that they always, Season 1, okay, I understand. Season 2, okay, I get it. But by Season 3, we know the characters enough where they keep trying to sow seeds of doubt to try and make us feel like these characters would actually do something that bad, but it never is them. And I don't know why they keep trying to convince us that it could possibly be, because by now we know their character traits. We know what kind of people they are, and they need to really be pushed to the edge to actually do something like that. And honestly, I don't think they have or really ever will. And it's always, I'll just cut to the chase, either Samuel or Guzman. And I just don't really get it, because like by now, like most of them have lost everything that they loved anyway. So it's not like, but since I brought up their names, there are a lot of characters in this show, and I honestly would love to give you a full synopsis of who everybody is, but I really don't want to be here for over 20 minutes, both for my sake and your sake. So we're gonna give a real Cliff Notes version of who we have here. So main characters who you need to know if you haven't seen it. You have Samuel, who is like, I think the main character, but also not the main character. He's like the guy who we're supposed to be rooting for. I guess he's one of the main protagonists. TLDR on him, his girlfriend died, but his brother was also dating his girlfriend, and his brother's a criminal, so like they sent him away and he's in hiding. And Samuel isn't one of like the rich kids, he's on scholarship and he has to like fight like social class and whatever. But this season, he finally has zero love interest. Last season, he was really into Carla, who was this other rich girl. But this season, he's into another girl named, I can't remember her name, I just know that she really looks like Demi Lovato. Not really, but like the haircut and vibe. Ari, her name is Ari. And then we have Guzman, who is the other, I guess, main character. Not in this season though. Guzman was kind of giving like side back character energy because he didn't really talk that much. He was mostly just being mad at Samuel. His sister was the one who died in Season 1, the one that Samuel was in love with. He fell in love with this hijabi girl named Nadia. Nadia went off to college. Oh yeah, that's also something I need to talk about. I'm sorry, this is so scattered. I promise it'll make sense eventually. Most of these people in this season all should have graduated. Like they should have been gone by now, but they all got in their own sets of circumstances where they're basically super seniors, with the exception of the 4 new characters in the show. There's also Rebe, or Rebecca, who is the daughter of a matriarchal mobster. Basically her mom is dope as She also used to date Sam. She's really cool. She's really like edgy. Her fits are always amazing and her makeup's always amazing. But like she really just gives like those badass vibes. Not necessarily this season. This season she's giving very much simp, which I mean, okay, character development. Progression, growth, maybe. Definitely really liked her character this season. There's also Omar and Ander, and I'm going to put them together because they're a couple and alone they don't have too much difference this season, to be honest. Omar is Nadia's older brother and also Ander's boyfriend. I can't tell whether I like them as a couple or if they're just like inherently toxic for each other but won't let each other go. I am always in flux every single season about which is which. But generally every season, this one included, there's like a turmoil in their relationship and they end up breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together, which gives some great drama, but is also kind of like tiring after a certain point because like how many times are you really gonna, you know, try and respin the old wheel? But they're cute, love that for them. I think the final returning character is Cayetana, and Cayetana, oof, I hated Cayetana. I hated Cayetana for the longest time just because she used to support a character I did not like in the past seasons before he croaked. But Cayetana, when she was first introduced, was the janitor's daughter at this rich school, and she'd pretend to be like one of like the rich kids, and then she got exposed for being the janitor's daughter. Basically, she's the only one that actually got out of high school but is trapped in high school because she got hired as the janitor. So she's kind of like the eyes and ears for the group. And that's like the recurring cast that have been with us throughout the previous seasons. And then they add 4 new characters, and these 4 characters really do spice it up. Like usually I don't like when they introduce new characters just because it usually gives like, oh, they're like one season and done. But these 4 really just impacted the story. They sent the whole thing for a spin. I don't think I talked about season 4's plot enough specifically because it describes why they're there. The old principal, who was Ander's mom, got removed because after like 3 people dying, like he probably shouldn't be president at the school where you let that happen. But she gets replaced by this new principal who's a lot stricter and comes with 3 kids. One of them being Patrick, who is played by the Manurios. Beautiful man, need I say more? He has like daddy issues, to be honest, because like he doesn't like not being in control because he got into a car accident and that took away all his control. So now he's like, I'm gonna control everything. So he tries to mess up and home wreck Ander and Omar's relationship, and they are like a throuple for like a hot second, and then things just get messy and they just kind of switch off with each other, which we'll talk about, very messy. But then with Patrick, there's his twin, Ari, but gives Demi Lovato vibes, circa yogurt shop fiasco. To all the Elite stands out there, I feel like the introduction of Ari and her character was a direct result of like the Elite screenwriters or writers in general knowing that we needed a replacement for Lou and her energy because they are actually very similar. I feel like they get along pretty well. Maybe not because they're both the same or similar way, but like that just really like privileged, snarky, snooty, like is really snaky to everyone but is like really damaged underneath. And that's just who she is. She's really judgmental. She has like a drinking problem where like she switches into her alter ego after she gets a sip of wine. But yeah, she generally just takes like one sip of wine and then automatically just wants to be with everybody. I mean, like, go off, do you, but also like don't judge people for doing the same or less, you know? Then there's the younger sister, Mencia, who this season is a whole mess, just a general mess, all throughout mess. She's like seen as like the problem child because she was involved in a lot of their family's drama and trauma. But basically she ends up getting kicked out of her house and ultimately becomes a, how can I say this without being demonetized? A nighttime worker, if you get my vibes. And oh yeah, Mencia and Rebe end up getting into a relationship and they are cute but toxic. But yeah, that's them. And then the final character, I know I said this would be quick, but this actually ended up taking a lot more time than I thought. The final character is Prince Man. What's his name? Philippe. I hate Philippe. All the homies hate Philippe. He is a prince who has a shady past of being a SAer. Awful human. He ends up getting with Cayetana because she's trying to social climb and become a designer, and he's like a fashion prince, whatever. He basically does end up, you knowing Cayetana, which is awful, and I hope he gets what's coming to him next season. But yeah, those are all the characters. While they're all so different, they are all so good. And there's just so much, well, not racial diversity because they did get rid of most, if not all of their diversity last season. But you know, it's rich part of Spain. They just all have such unique personalities and jump off of each other so well that make things just so much more dramatic, spicy, and juicy. Like it really just is like a giant modern day soap opera. And I love it. I really do love it for that. And I just really want to harp on the new characters just for a second, just because I said this before. They did such a good job. Like their characters were so good. Like, I've never had a character that was introduced in just one season that made me love them, love them, and hate them again. Like, it was just such a volatile relationship between them and me because, yes, we're like friends. Like, I was able to have like such a complex emotional roller coaster with them, which I don't feel like could happen or hasn't happened with a lot of other shows or even past seasons. And I guess I can't make a commentary on Elite without actually mentioning how hot all the characters are, like every last one of them. Yeah, the casting director knew what they were doing, respectfully. Another nice thing, since we're getting into the good, another nice thing was that while they didn't have diversity, they had inclusion. Like, having Rebe be bi was a really nice touch, like having her like navigate that too, and then like her mom finding out and just being like cool with it. Not with who she was with, but the fact that she was really dope. Just because like they didn't have to go there, but it was nice that they did, you know? I think this season was like my favorite out of all of them because I was just generally so excited and so enticed, captured, and raptured. Not the rapture. I was just so interested continuously this season that I really can't complain in that department. But I will complain in other departments. The first thing that I want to talk about that not that I didn't like, but or just like kind of things, you know, we've been here before. We've had this conversation before about like the trope of love triangles. I feel like every drama has it. I think the show just in general, not even specifically this season, is just love triangles galore. And I feel like that is what drives most of the plot. Like, of course, there's like the murder, but the love triangles are a strong point of the plot, I promise. Just because usually one of the people in one of the love triangles is one of the people that end up being the main victim, the person that we're trying to investigate and figure out whom and whomst. But just this season, we have a love triangle between Rebe, Mencia, and I guess if you want to count the creepy old dude. You have another one between Ander, Omar, and Patrick. And then you have the one between like the main guys of like Samuel, Guzman, and Ari. And I guess if you want to count it and make it full circle, you have a love triangle between Cayetana, Philippe, and his past. But going back to Samuel Guzman, one thing I just didn't get or never really understood was why the relationship got so rocky so fast. I never really understood because I feel like that part of the show was very forced. Like the conflict between Guzman and Samuel was very, very, very forced. After all they've been through, 3 seasons worth of trauma, them faking Sam's own death, having to grieve the loss of a mutual friend that they cared about, 2 that they cared about, having to hide multiple dead bodies, lie to countless amounts of people, basically having to be like the closest that you can really be to someone and share like the most secrets with someone just for a girl with a bob to mess it all up. Like I don't understand why that made the relationship so volatile. Like after all they went through, why was that the one thing that messed up the relationship? I'm not saying that Ari is bad or awful or anything. I'm just saying like after all they've been through and all the things that could have broken their friendship, why was this the one thing that stirred the pot? Like it didn't make sense. Like maybe season 1 that would have been okay, but we're 4 seasons in. It just doesn't make sense why that's a big deal. Like, it just seems very high school. But like, how can you frame someone for murder and in the same breath be immature enough to fight and ruin your relationship over someone you met a month ago? I just don't understand where that beef's coming from. Another thing that I want to touch on that isn't necessarily a bad thing, just something that I've noticed, is that especially for this season, I've realized that the Elite formula is very much the same. Like by this point, it's just what we're expecting, but I didn't realize how similar each of the seasons really are. It always involves some mystery of someone who is presumed to be dead. There's always some drama, some turmoil that leads up to it, and then in the finale, there's always this investigator who never actually knows how to do their job correctly. And then at the end, it shows exactly what happened, and then literally just turns all these high schoolers into sociopaths for like the last 15 minutes of the show. Like for this one, I really understand because I've been through this 3 times, but it's just the way that they just snapped into sociopath mode that really freaked me out. Like the second that Guzman went pew pew and took out the creepy guy, they all came together and were like, all right, so we're gonna hide the body. We're not gonna tell anyone about this. You need to tell this story, you need to tell that story, we need to make sure our stories are linked. You do not tell this person, you do not tell that person. Guzman, wash your hands, go, say this, say that, and we'll make it out of here safe. And I was just like, huh? What? They've done this like multiple seasons, but this was the one that I was really just like, damn. Y'all are crazy. Do not mess with the Elite kids because they will get rid of you and get rid of you fast. Make sure you're never found again. I know we just talked about characters, but I really just want to jump back and really dive into a certain sect of characters, like a certain few that I feel like really carried this season. For one, I feel like Mencia's story was one of like the more interesting ones this season. Like the whole love triangle between like the main boys and Ari really wasn't that interesting. Like it was kind of stale. But Mencia's story was actually very interesting and actually really traumatic when you think about it. Because mind you, this whole time she's like 16, 17 going through all of this. Like almost going through something extremely, extremely traumatic twice. But for one of them, luckily Rebecca was able to save her. But just seeing like her character and seeing how far someone can go after they feel absolutely rejected and feel not welcomed was crazy. And I'm just so glad that she had someone like Rebe there with her to just keep it, like hold her down and make sure that things never went too far. Well, they did go too far, but at least everyone made it out alive. Another person that I mentioned but I want to talk about is Cayetana. Cayetana really had a redemption arc this season. She had her redemption arc because like I said, I hated Cayetana. I hated Cayetana for the longest time for sticking with Polo, for being just so dumb and like so jaded and being like, Polo, like, I hated her for the longest time. But she really had a redemption arc. Outside of the awful thing that happened to her like near the end, just seeing her have to battle with like the accusations, with like her own common sense and moral judgment, and just seeing her grow as a person and seeing her kind of grow out of like that social climber sort of mindset was great growth for her. And I think the last person I really want to talk about now is, you knew this was coming. Manu King Rios. He was crazy in this show. He was crazy. And I don't think people talk about like how crazy he actually is. Like besides this whole temper tantrum where he like knocks out his sister, the whole stuff that he was doing with Omar and Ander, specifically the part where they broke up. I don't know if y'all caught this. I barely caught exactly what the intention behind this was. But when he FaceTimed Omar, when he was having his conversation with Ander, basically berating Ander, questioning his love for Omar, like that was evil. Like if Ander wasn't such a good person for Omar, like that could have gone awfully. Like I feel like in Patrick or like Manu's mind, he was trying to set up Ander to basically trash talk Omar, to get Omar to not like Ander anymore so that Patrick and Omar can be together, which is incredibly fucked up. The amount of mental gymnastics you have to go through to be able to think of a plan like that and then actually go through with it. Like something is wrong, love. Something has to be miscalculated, unequilibriized, like something. Like that just is not okay. That's not right. Throughout the season, he really did do the most to try and manipulate everyone and ended up doing actually nothing. Like got nothing out of it. No matter what he did, nothing really went his way. Like at the end of the day, Omar and Ander are still together. He's still single. All he did was accelerate the growth that they were going to have together. So, I mean, like, okay. And with all that said and out the way, let's talk about the finale, friends. Let's talk about the finale because a lot happened in the finale. We already talked about like the whole like sociopathy of the friend group. I feel like this finale was really good. I feel like it was really good. It did a lot of things. It tied up some knots and it left tons and tons of room for season 5. Basically, Demi Lovato got knocked out. I like the creepy guy who was with Mencia. And one thing that got me was that they made it a lot worse than it actually was. Like they portrayed it as being a lot worse than it actually was. Like of course it was still awful. Like that grown man beat up on Ari.
One thing I will say though that just baffles me is why did Ari just decide to stand there and be like, I'm calling my dad. I'm gonna tell him everything right in front of that man. Like you didn't have to say that right in front of that man. You could have walked away and done it, Because what did you think would happen if you threatened this whole man's life? Like you have his whole life in your hands. You think he's just gonna sit there and be like, oh no. Like why would you tell him that? And then turn around to go call him. Like what are you doing? I'm sorry, but I just don't understand.
I just felt like that was a little bit anticlimactic. And also I think it was kind of funny how Guzman took down the creepy man. Like he brings out this firecracker shooter out of nowhere. And he's like, you like see him like loaded up and he's like, hey. And the guy turns around and stops. He like stops and turns around and he's like, yeah. Like after he just beat up someone and is running for his life, he like stops to turn around and be like, huh? And then the firework goes in his back and he croaks. It was just like the way that they shot it and the way that it was just orchestrated that was kind of funny to me. And then the very last bit of the finale where the main group sends off Ander and Guzman to go on their hiking trip or their exploration trip because Guzman's trying to basically avoid police and Ander is trying to live his best life while he can. I feel like that was good. That was like a nice sentimental piece to like wrap up the season. I just don't really get why Guzman was trying to avoid the feds. They previously established that Ari's dad can basically get anything done with a phone call. So if Guzman came clean to Ari and her dad, he could have scrubbed all the records and probably would have scrubbed all the records because he would be happy that Guzman did that just because of the stuff they did with Mencia and now Ari. And Guzman could have just stayed and just like finished his school career. Because like, I don't know what the reason is, but these kids will do anything but graduate in this show. So I don't really understand that motivation. Maybe it's like shame, or maybe he doesn't like want them to have that over him. I don't know. But he's gonna have to come back eventually. Like, they're not gonna like stop searching. Like, he didn't go without a trace. Like, there's still evidence of what happened. But you know, it's whatever. But overall, I feel like the finale was very good. Did what it needed to do for sure. I definitely have to give this show a solid 9 out of 10. Like, it is a solid 9 out of 10. Highly would recommend. Love this series. Love this season. If you haven't seen it and you still want to see it even despite the spoilers, I highly recommend. I love this show so much. It brings me so much happiness. Thank you all so much for watching and waiting for so long for this video to come out. I hope it was everything you asked for and more, or at least gave something. If you're new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I post. If you enjoyed this video though, leave a like because that helps out a lot, and comment down below what your favorite parts of the show were, or what show I should watch next. I did see that Generation Part 2 came out, so that might be next. I might have to follow up and see how that ended up. If you want to keep up with me and whatever I'm doing, you can follow me over here at Imurgency. Finally, if you want to interact more with me and be a part of the community we have going on here, you can click the link in my description to join our community Discord. We are growing, y'all. We're over 300 people now, almost at 400, and it's a really great time. So I definitely recommend, if you are into Discord, or if you just want to chat with me or other people that like talking about shows or just support me, then check the description down below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.